Do you know who Christ is? We're going to find out tonight. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Right. Do you know who Christ is?
I think so.
Oh, good. Do you think we can explain it to anybody? So I'll tell you, but I'll start with.
We've been trying.
Well, we've been trying. I bless their hearts. My students in my History of European Civilization class are really getting the like. I'll dunk them in the ocean version. Here, we're going to start with Augustine in Carthage and 400 with Deo Gratias asking him. Well, Augustine's in Hippo, and Deo Gratias is asking him, "How do you catechize well? Right? What kind of narratio should I tell these people that are coming to me wanting to be told the And what's interesting, of course, when Deo Gratias catechizes, he tells them the whole story of creation and the whole story of the Old Testament. And they don't really talk that much about Jesus, which is puzzling.
Why?
Well, isn't that what we should be doing? Should we just be talking about Jesus? If we want to say who's Christ, we just start with the history. This guy, born under Augustus, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died and buried, descended into hell, ascended into heaven on the third day. He rose again from the dead, ascended to the right hand of the Father, from whence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. Well, that solves it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The who.
Well, that's the formula version.
Well, okay, so I tried another version. I'm just like, this is the struggle, right? I realize it's a problem of story, because you're trying to get people into a story that they may or may not have heard. I mean, with the Augustinian desire in the long run to say, and you're part of this story, and you're in it, right? And he saved you too. Yippee! Right? Yes. But we've regularly and sort of skirted around this a lot over the last year. I mean, we did do a stream way at the beginning with Christ as the lover knight. But this mystery of how to say who's Christ, who's Jesus Christ the Lord, who's Jesus as Lord, it's interesting that it's so difficult.
Well, it's difficult. My first thought was it's especially difficult now because most people don't even know what lords are.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like Jesus is your representative senator, is it?
Right, but the thing is, he's born in the Roman Empire. So, yeah, representative senator, I mean, during his lifetime, Caligula made his horse a senator, allegedly.
Yes.
So, the equine vote, right?
Very important. They were crazy. Well,
but the thing is, I'm not sure it was any easier in Jesus's lifetime for people to understand what it meant, which is kind of why he got crucified.
Well, that's what we were talking about a few days ago.
Yeah,
the apostles having the difficulty of explaining Christ to different people around the region. They didn't find it easy.
Well, there's
know.
this.
Is it too bold to say we can try and attempt?
Oh, we're going to, and we're going to keep trying, and we're going to find the way in. But I'd say that this topic is on my mind a lot because it's on my mind all the time. But it's on my mind right now because of the way my teaching problems that I set up for myself on campus with one, the history of European civilization, which if I don't try to explain at some point what Christianity is, it's just this kind of black box that everything happens in relation to. And you just end up with this, well, the church was bad because it forced people to do stuff. And you're like, all right.
Yes.
No, but how am I going to explain this to you? And then it's like, well, there's this Jesus guy. This came up in class today. So it's like, how do you actually prove Jesus is somebody other than just a cool magician? Because that it could. Let me set up how I got to this part of it too. So after we read Augustine on catechizing, and I try to give them some sense of like there's this desire to persuade from within their rhetorical training in antiquity, and the thing that Augustine says to Deo Gratias he needs to tell them is the history of the church. So there's this historical premise, but that history begins with creation. Like the story begins with Genesis, not Jesus. And it goes through all of the ages of the Old Testament until you get to Jesus, which then Augustine kind of doesn't go into detail on. It's like you could be explaining to people what Christianity is and never get to what I think most people wonder about. Is like, should I watch The Chosen on television and see an actor portraying this character who is being bro with his homies?
I'm thinking about this. Well, different kinds of Christians have explained Christ very differently, so that's a problem also. Because I mean, let's say now we're going to be discussing Christ as God incarnate. I mean, that's the first scandal that we have to overcome in this conversation, because not all of the people that profess to be Christians actually think that this is who he is.
Well, you and I do, right? So we're just going to take that as read.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. We're not.
We're going to ignore everyone.
But the thing is, I mean, this is it's interesting that in this, I hadn't thought of this until today when I was trying to explain it to the students, and they're going, "What's Christianity?" I'm like, "Well, it's the story of creation, and it's the Old Testament and the New Testament." They're going, "What are you talking about?" And then the next text I have them read is Beowulf, because allegedly we're trying to show them both the Greco-Roman sort of cultural framework out of which whatever it is we're talking about, European civilization emerges, whatever that is, if Europe has a civilization anymore, because nobody remembers any of this stuff. If you don't remember the stories, there's no culture, right? There's no tradition that you're even talking about. It's like, as Vox likes to say, there's no magic dirt. It doesn't just like make you something by living there. And obviously I mean, if it counts as kinship, it also counts as all the stories that you've been told as you've been growing up.
Yes.
And then, so we're, the next one that we have them read is Beowulf, and it's saying, okay, so there's this old English story. It gives them this completely different image of, sort of the social situation, and there's got monsters and there's feuds and stuff like that. But from my perspective, it's a problem because it's very, very clear to me that Beowulf is a story told by a Christian. It's a Christian storyteller, and all of the characters that he has, it's like Tolkien trying to tell the Hobbit story of the Lord of the Rings. Obviously, the background is this assumption of Christian truth, which then there's this kind of fictional story with monsters and references to apparent historical entities overlaid with, oh no, the bard in the mead hall sings the song of creation. And so then you say, well, there's no Jesus in the story, so is it Christian? And then what would that mean? And then I was like, well, what about that dragon, right? Dragons. Those are clearly Germanic, right? Okay, there's a trick. My students are already wary of me right now. So I show them a picture of this guy's dressed like a Roman soldier, and he's got a spear, and he's fighting a snake and a lion. And I say, who's this? And they start guessing because they know that they have to try now. And I'm like, well, it's got a cruciform halo. And they're like, it's Christ. And I'm like, yeah, because he's in the Psalms as Lord killing this serpent. And now I've completely lost them, right? Because it's like, wait, Christ is in the Psalms? Well, one, they weren't quite sure what the Psalms were. So I'm like, oh my gosh, the cultural gulfs. And I feel for Augustine and Deo Gratius. It's like, how are you going to tell people what it means to be Christian when they've never heard the story to start with? And you're trying to bring them into this story that you're going to convince them is the reality that they live within. And they've never heard it before. I'm sweating already.
Yeah. This is really difficult now.
Yeah, you see where we are. You see how hard it is. I mean, I'm showing the pictures of the Gospel of Saint Augustine, different Augustine, which is probably, I realize now, going to have confused them too. That is carried in procession at the coronation of King Charles, and I'm like, book, it's really important. It makes him Christian, and they're like, okay, we believe you, but we don't know why. and I'm showing the picture of St. Luke on his chair, right? And saying, who do you think this is? And they said, God. And I'm like, no. It's literally the book that helps the English be Christian. It's the Gospels. It's the story of Christ. But they're, the picture they have is not of Christ. Although there's some little pictures of the life of Jesus or the Passion. It's, the author of the book that they're looking at. And I'm just like, I don't even know where to start anymore.
Okay. So we've lost all cultural references to basic Christian themes. That's how bad it is.
That's how bad it is for us. And then you think, so what were the gospel authors doing? The other direction. Were they writing to an audience that knew any of this stuff? And then that's, of course, tricky, because it's like, I mean, when Paul is going around telling everybody about the Gospels don't exist, at least as texts.
They weren't written down yet.
And so he's going to Corinth or Athens, right, and saying, Jesus is the Lord, he saved you. And they're going, from what?
Yes.
And what do you mean Lord? As you said, people don't have an idea of Lord to start with.
Yeah.
Right, but this sort of, I mean, this whole repertoire of questions that I'm realizing there's sort of one, I do often have this feeling. It's like, where do you start when you're telling history? Well, we don't know, because history kind of starts in the middle of everything. People start writing stuff down in the middle of stuff that they've already been arguing about for who knows how long. Certainly, right? There's been storytelling ever since those cavemen painted the bison in Lascaux. And we are trying to figure out how to, I don't know, is it start from the beginning? Is it start in the middle? Is it start, which problem are we needing to start with?
Well, it's difficult because we're talking about this story of God becoming man in a culture that doesn't even recognize God in many cases. So
yes. I think we actually have a harder problem now than they did in antiquity.
Level up, just to make things more interesting. Trying to explain to people. I did have a little bit of a conversation with someone about this once, and one of our good friends, Carbon Mike, and we're talking about the problem of introducing Christ into the material culture, and I countered the idea that most people were not religious. They may not have an understanding of God, but I think that most people in the West are very, very extremely religious. That's why the culture now is getting so obsessive over the very strange idea viruses that are getting presented to it with all of this like woke stuff and whatever. But the religious impulses are really strong, but not a knowledge of there being a God who is creator. That has dissolved. So I think that would be my instinct, to start there and to propose a counter narrative to the claim that the universe is an accident of chance. The idea that we exist without a God is ludicrous. That needs to be abandoned before we can have a discussion over who Christ is, I think. Because for a lot of people, it's just it's a stretch to even recognize that there is a God, let alone to say, no, he's incarnated. He is
right.
He is now Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah, to say God with us doesn't mean anything if there's no. So,
yeah, exactly.
Our friend Contemplations on the Tree of Woe just did a post that's on philosophical monotheism, although he doesn't put it quite that way. And then I commented and say, monotheism is a 16th or 17th century term. I think it's a slur against the incarnation to start with. But his argument being that, in fact, most, quote, pagans, whatever that means, philosophers in antiquity were, in fact, quote, monotheist, although I think that's not the right term. It's like they have some sense of the divine, whatever that means, which, I think Romans tend to say there's divus, right? There's gods, and that's just the divinity, but that's in sort of biblical terms more like heaven, I suppose, Lord. It's right. It's what you're saying. It's like we need to start with, and this is in fact how the missionaries to the English seem to have proceeded, right? They start with and it's certainly Pope Gregory, when he's writing to the bishops that Augustine sets up in the Anglo-Saxon Church, their beginning premise is always the story of creation. It's like the song of creation, and that's what in Beowulf. You're making me feel happier now. At least we started in the right place. In Beowulf, what the bard sings in the mead hall is the song of creation, just like we know Caedmon, the cowherd that Bede talks about, is composing the earliest English poetry. He sings the song of creation. So you have to start there. You have to start with this philosophical understanding of being made. And then it's like one godness is this sort of like, no, just start with, as Dorothy Sayers has always been saying, start with the idea that we are creatures. So there is a creator, there is an artist.
Yes. Yeah, there is an artist.
Right.
The great poet.
The great poet, yes.
The great poet, yeah. But that is a terrifying premise for a lot of people to wrestle with, I think. We have to get them to the point where they recognize that they are created, therefore they are an artwork. And I think there's something more romantic in that than there is in talking to them about why science is wrong. Kind of the argument over origins can just be perpetual, because people are going to rely on an accumulation of Enlightenment science, which has killed God from the mentality of Western civilization. So
there's some making going on in your background today, I can tell. This is
what what is being made is the question.
There's some kind of making going on in the background there. Well, come on, you've got roosters, you've got making things. I love your rooster.
It's all happening.
If your rooster doesn't crow for us at some point, we're going to be sad.
Yeah. I gave them sesame. I gave them sesame. I think they're all in a bit of a food coma this morning.
You've drugged your chickens.
I did.
So they're not accompanying us this time. Well, what you said, most people are. It's this. This is a sort of Chestertonian premise of the thing we seem to know about human beings is they're religious, and people are, right. They default to worship just like that. And certainly in antiquity that was recognized that everybody has some kind of worship, and you're responding either out of philosophically in this contemplation of the being madeness, or ritually in the service to the genius of your city or your tribe, or
Yes.
the sort of sense,
it can manifest
sense that we have of being. I mean, what's funny is you can find people, saying it's like the Native American traditions all understand the fact that there's a spiritual world, and you say, yeah, right. So does every other religious tradition. I mean, it's like, it's interesting that we're more comfortable with, I don't know, the Aboriginal claims of divinity than we are with the ancient philosophical ones, or the continuing Christian one of, yes, we are in a world that has the spiritual in communication with the, I would say, the spiritual. It's the heavenly and the earthly. It's not just the spiritual material, but it's like the heavenly beings, the spirits, in communication with us, the incarnate ones, the incarnate minds.
Yeah, I think people are drawn to the Aboriginal or the Indigenous, not just Australian, but anywhere, because it's totemic. And there is something about animism which speaks to people on a different level than saying monotheism, because the way I think that the monotheistic religions are presented now in modernity is I mean, it's modern. It's not a kind of ancient expression of things which integrates art with devotion,
right?
Which is, I mean, this is why your work is so beautiful, because you've explained this so wonderfully, that the act of devotion, it generates ritual. For Western civilization, that ritual was art. It was the creation of the civilization itself. So civilization is the output of the devotion to the object of devotion.
I did say that, didn't I?
You did say that. So
devotion requires an object. And Father Shaw actually said it. I got exactly right, and Aquinas said that too. No, that's great. I hadn't read Aquinas at that point. Yes,
she knows what she's talking about. Yeah,
I follow the tradition.
Yeah, but that's what the Indigenous and the Aboriginal does.
Right.
It generates a totemic identity for the people that have their focus on the totem. It's a form of devotion to something which is living and that animates, animism. It's animated, and then the culture is generated from the interaction with all of these animated totems and things. And so the entire landscape itself becomes the medium for devotion and ritual, and that's what creates that culture. And I think that this is why people are mistaking a lot of times the reasons why particular religious expressions are rejected by people that are not very happy with the way that European civilization presented Christ, because this, it seems to me, more healthy that they I'm rambling a little bit, but it's like the idea of an object of devotion directly generating culture makes far more sense in both an Aboriginal and an ancient Christian way than church is something we do on Sunday, and then for the rest of the week we're going to participate in a secular and materialistic culture. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I mean, I know you're going the direction we want to go, which is towards art and the sort of like the truth comes out in the. I mean, it went for my other class. I'm doing the How to Read the Gospels class. We read Dorothy Sayers' preface to her radio play, the man born to be king, and she talks about how the theological truth comes from doing the play well. That there's the truth of the story actually shows the theological truth, and if you do the story badly and sort of, I think her radio play was the first time that Jesus had been portrayed as by an actor for hundreds and hundreds of years in English, because there'd been a ban on it. I think we mentioned this before, but
yes, we did.
That she says that to do the art well, you get the theology right, and if you can't do the art well, the theology can't emerge. But it comes out of the expression in this story form.
So God and art are connected. I think that's where we would start. It's the discussion of whether or not there is a God is usually based on like well, if he was real, and I want a donut, why don't I have a donut right now? Kind of, the stupid atheistic
actually a sort of magical thinking, right? It's like if there's really a God, why can't I do the prayers right and get the stuff I want?
Exactly.
Which is a conjuration of demons and magic, frankly, right? It's like saying the desire for control is the proper expression of devotion, the proper expression of religion, rather than the desire for love, which is, of course, then what Augustine tells Deo Gratias, what he has to do is he has to teach with love, because that's what God does for us, comes into our story, descends to our ability to understand him by speaking to us through flesh, right? He has to become incarnate and talk to us, because sending all those prophets wasn't working, basically, right? It's like that he's sending people to talk for him, and as Jesus told in one of the parables and nobody was listening, he says, okay, so I need to come and communicate with you directly because you're not hearing me. This is Augustine's argument, that if you despair at finding this too difficult, your understanding not making it through your fleshly lips, off over your tongue into actual communication with other human beings, just think how hard it was for God. And how much he had to descend into our condition in order to make that communication, but that he did it for love, rather than the way that most sort of religious practices work of doing this thing so as to get benefits.
Superstition.
Right.
It's a superstitious practice.
But that's why from the Christian perspective, it is superstition, because it's an exercise. It's always this exercise of control. And the way the Romans understood their sacrifices is, we need to do our sacrifice exactly right, because if we make any mistakes in our phrasing our words or anything like that, it won't work, right? The prayer won't work. And of course, that's not the way Christians understand prayer. Jesus tends to tell some stories about, don't think of it in those terms, right? That if you pray a lot or with better words or something like that, you pray from your attention to God, rather than because you're doing the rituals all perfectly.
Yeah, it's the it's the attention, which is the thing that is going to generate art. I think the rituals they generate something else. I mean, it's a half-formed thought. I'll come back to it. But,
okay, so we've crept around some of the major elements, right? That we need some sense of, a spiritual reality, which we tend to. It's like the way people behave tends to prove that kind of everybody has it by default. Because but then if it's misdirected, though, they turn it into, a lot of modern science I would suggest this misdirected expectation that it's desire to be in control of the situation in certain ways, but that the existence of the spiritual is whether people admit it to themselves or not, typically shown in their behavior that they do believe in it. So we start there, we say therefore that's a basic truth that's not like, can you prove it logically, but more, can you show that our, no, and I don't like the God-shaped hole in your heart kind of thing, because I think that's a silly argument.
I like the idea of focusing on beauty, the idea of people that see something that's beautiful. They know what's beautiful and what's ugly. When they see something that's beautiful, it implies that it's been made. That's a very simple way of explaining something, which, you know, you're avoiding the God-shaped hole, but I mean, it's very easy to recognize a beautiful city that people would be flooding to visit just because they want to take pictures in it, versus somewhere that's a, you know, a war-torn ghetto environment. Nobody's holidaying in it. Why? Because people have a natural impulse and compulsion to run towards something that is beautiful. And they know instantly when they're somewhere that is beautiful that it has been made that way purposefully. Beauty is not assembled accidentally. It's evident that wherever you find art, there will be an artist.
Okay. I mean, you could do the same. I mean, so I think it's actually fairly easy to do with the other transcendentals. That goodness, I mean, goodness, it requires a standard for being good. Otherwise, nothing's evil.
Yeah.
So that we recognize, if you feel judgmental against other people for things that they've done, that you're already claiming that there is a standard by which to judge. So that there must be something that's good. Truth seems to be a little trickier for people, whether or not they think there's actually something true. And that, so I'm reading this fun book on flipping the narrative, and he flips all these narratives about, you know, the usual things that we've talked about, money supply and what happened on 9/11 and the pandemic and stuff. But when he gets to religion, he's still in the same place of, oh, well, all religions teach the same thing, and there's, you know, you have your truth, I have my truth. And it's like, you spent the rest of the book showing that's not the case. And so I think people do get stuck because of maybe this is like, I think we can believe in the beautiful and respond to the good. The truth is where people get stuck, saying, well, why can't Buddha be truth? Why can't Moses be truth? Why can't Ganesha be truth? Why can't the Great Spirit be truth? I think the Great Spirit is probably mythologically participating in the Creator already, but as the Indians talk to the French a lot, and the Jesuits are spending a lot of time talking to them about their theology. It's the truth part that gets people stuck.
Yes. And
then, well, okay. So I think we've wandered around this question for a bit. What's interesting about this is saying, okay, so there's a spirituality, there's a feeling of participating in a meaningful world. There's a sense that there should be justice, so there should be some standard by which you judge, and that we are loved. Well, although Christianity is the one tradition that actually claims being loved, I don't think the Song of Songs in the Old Testament suggests that God loves Israel, so that's for sure. And Hosea talks about the people as the bride, but there's nothing in Buddhism about being loved, right? It's compassion for other creatures, but there's no lover. There's no like maker who loves. The love, the Hindu devotions are interesting because of all of the things that I've studied, they too seem closest to what Christians there he is. What Christians, see, I'm getting it there. What Christians describe as, devotion to the God, and the God responds, but I'm not quite sure how Krishna responds, right? There's other ways that's been, but you can get people to this point, but you can't usually get them to the point of Jesus is the truth. And then the next level up is Jesus is God. But we have, and I'm not, maybe these two live together as a question for people.
Yeah, I think they do live together. They have to.
The rooster agrees. We've
Yeah.
hit the essence. So it has to be when we say what's Jesus. If we're saying he's God, then that limits other options.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get caught with people thinking, well, what does that mean that he's God? Chad, have we so Casey is talking about true, no atheist in ancient Rome. Today's frame of reference is post-enlightenment. It's different. We're in. Yeah. I think that our exercise right now with the rooster is affirming, is getting to the place where people actually trip. And it's not unspiritual. I don't know if it's on beauty. I think people believe in beauty. I think they make themselves purposely ugly in a variety of ways because they feel, I don't know. I think if you can't, my sense, if you can't achieve perfection, you'll just go for grotesque, but I'm not quite that sure that's what it is. Everyone believes in a judgment. They just don't want to accept on what standard. And then you end up with truth and you're stuck. So we watched a movie to think about this.
Yeah, we did.
And this is Jesus Christ Superstar from 1973, if anybody's wondering. I grew up in the 70s. Well, I don't know whether before or after I watched Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth on television, but I certainly in high school had the record, the LP of the, I don't know whether it's a Broadway production. I think it was just the rock opera version that Weber and Rice had to make because nobody would make the show in the first place because they thought it was silly. Like, are you gonna make, how are you to show, and it's obviously the whole point of Jesus Christ Superstar is, who do you think you are? Who are you? Right? It's it's literally in the song, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, who are you? What have you sacrificed? Hey, I can actually carry almost that tune. That's great. I must have listened to it a lot. I actually have some of the notes in my head. And that I love. I'll sing it again. I'm so happy. I feel like the rooster. Do it again. No! Let's see. Let me see. Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, who are you? What have you sacrificed? I lost it there. Okay, so it's set in the title song that Judas is singing after he's hanged himself, recognizing that he's betrayed his friend. But it is the, who are you? What are you? And so I think I love the production because it's actually like framed around that angst that people have. I mean, and so this came out 50 years ago. The movie came out 50 years ago. It's very interesting watching. I then looked up all the actors in it. A lot of them are still alive, which suggests it was a good thing to be in. I don't know. They still look good, and including the director, Norman Jewison, who is not in fact Jewish. Yes, he is, however, Canadian and Protestant. So we don't know whether to blame him for that. And that most of the cast was in fact American. The man who plays Pilate, I won't remember all their names. Ted Neely is playing Jesus. The man who played Pilate, I was absolutely convinced he was British. You and I were like chatting about the movie and we're saying, only the Brits can sneer like that. He's actually from Chicago. So we're not even sure we can identify. He was that good. The English, phonemes of these particular singers, and it's all sung, right? If you haven't watched it before, it was a rock opera. It was all completely sung, and it's therefore in this wonderful both drama and liturgical. It's like they go to Israel to film it, which is also quite poignant since it's 1973 and it's soon after the 6-Day War. And they're in various archaeological locations. So they're in this kind of I forgot where I was going. I mean, one of the places they film is actually like they film one of the trial part in a theater, in an old excavated Roman theater. So it has that kind of dramatic quality of sacred performance with chorus and tragedy and such. But on the other hand, they're all hippies.
Yeah, with no shirts on.
Well, that's that's nice too.
The whole it's like a Woodstock collided with the old Bible books that just show all of the archaeological areas. It's such a strange, visually, it's such a strange movie to watch for that reason.
There was all sorts of
very, very strange.
The opening is great, and I recognize that this comes from Weber and Rice did this in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat too, right? That they set it up as like it's a play. Right? There's this premise of the actors show up in regular people, as it were. In Joseph, they're the teachers in the school. And in Jesus Christ Superstar, they all show up on a bus, right? You got the camera work was great, right? This really long shot, first of the desert, and you can hear the overture, right? And then see the bus coming on the dirt, so that it's got the dust cloud, and the cast all gets off. And one of my students last week pointed out, you're seeing all of them get off, and you see all the different actors who are going to play the various characters. You don't see Jesus get off the bus. He's just suddenly there in this.
He's walking in the desert.
No, he just appears amidst them.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not there.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I got the wrong camera shot. Yeah, mixed up.
It's a get off the bus, and they're unloading the cross and things like that, and then we have this shot. We wanted actual screenshots as we went through the movie, but our streaming services won't let us do that, so we're reliant on what we could find out there on the internet. And this one's showing the group is sort of down on their knees, and Jesus is lifting his hands up, and so all of it is this wonderful. I do think this is genius, right? It's just all the who are you, and the first thing you have is he appears from their midst. Who is he? He just appears among them, this troop, and he's already dressed at this point. I think you see the white nighty thing on. There's always the mark of Jesus in these modern art productions, that he has to be dressed in white, unlike everybody else. So they put that on him, and then he turns around and he's in this gesture. But it's, I think, lovely as a question, because we are saying, how does God appear among us? How can you even say that he's there as a person?
Yeah, perfectly depicts the surprise. Suddenly there's that's kind of that's BC AD of them getting off the bus, and then suddenly Christ is there in their midst, isn't it?
I mean, it means the bus is Mary, because there's, in fact, no birth, right? He's just there suddenly as an adult. So there is a kind of premise of the way people show up in your life and start talking to you, instead of knowing their origins from their childhood. And you do get that sense. I mean, what I love, you're talking about how the men they're all shirtless, and the women are all bikini tummies and stuff. They're all very fixed. Apparently they were all like atheist hippies, who started, because of this production, reading the Aquarius Gospel, which then I looked up and I'm like, oh my goodness. but the dancers were all very, very fit, right? And that from there, in their experience, indeed, Jesus just appears. And you can say that that must have been the case when he started his preaching, that he's around 30 probably, and John has done his baptism thing. and then Jesus is suddenly there as, and in the play, he's kind of, we start, once we got them off the bus and everything, the first one you have is Judas singing about, what are you doing, right? So we're in the middle of the story. It's like constantly already in the middle of the story.
Yeah, there's no lead up, which is kind of what it's like trying to talk about Christianity to people. We're not going to give you the lead up to the Gospels, the Old Testament stories, and any of the historical references and the history of the Israelites. None of it. Bang! We're right here. There's a guy called Jesus. Let's talk about this. With no context. Where'd he come from?
Which doesn't work, right? We've established that. It's like, it makes great drama. And you have, who we have, oh, well, here's Annas, or Caiaphas first, right? It's like, you could say, yes, there would be a backstory if you, and you do get that a little bit with these priests, right? They're very fit too. So he's wearing the ephod with the gemstones on it and no shirt, which is, I don't think the priest. Never mind the funny hat, the black. They're all in these billowing black, like bat wing kind of cloaks and stuff that they're wearing, and then these whatever their hats are supposed to be. I don't know, but they are. I mean, interestingly, they're as just like the representative of the authorities.
Yes.
So here's
the religious
Jesus hippies gonna clash with the authorities, and it's dangerous for us. And I did like in the movie we have a pre-scene with Annas and Caiaphas, with I think is completely lame. It's not in the album description. Again, all of these characters, they just like get dropped in suddenly. Here they are, high priest and his sidekick, worrying about this Jesus, right? I'm now convincing myself this movie does not solve anything that we want it to. Because you have to know who all of these characters are already for it to punch you.
I was just thinking, watching this with no context whatsoever, it would seem like the most bizarre thing that was ever created.
Wouldn't it? I mean, I'm realizing my problem with all this. I grew up with my Bibles and my worrying about being perfect and my this, that, and the other. And so, of course, these stories are great. They're so powerfully told. And I'm getting it, right? It's so like, if you just watch this movie, it's like, okay, so he's their friend. And these guys with no shirts on and black capes are worried about him. Let's see, what I couldn't find the libretto, so we have to do it from memory. I'm blanking on everything because I can't sing anything except for that Superstar movie. What then to do about Jesus of Nazareth? Miracle worker, wonder of fools. No riots, no army, no... One thing I'll say for him, Jesus is cool. And you get the nice bass note. They're literally just setting him up as... well, I guess, the sort of charismatic holy man character.
Yeah, he kind of has the entrance underneath the scaffolding, where he looks like a guru. I think they borrowed, I think, a little bit from that 60s era where everybody was running off to India to get a guru.
Yeah,
it looks very much like Beatles enjoyers in India, with some kind of yogic philosopher who's giving them the enlightenment treatment. Which doesn't really explain anything. it's just the sort of equivocating him with just another guru in that way, I suppose.
They are. Drat.
They're not.
Okay, so we've got Caiaphas now and the rest of them on this scaffolding that you're describing. Do you want to like talk about that? What we see in that?
Oh, the roof Jews.
Well, they are. I mean, so they use all the locations quite fun, right? I'm surprised they got filming permission in a lot of these because they were. You can tell they're like archaeological sites.
They're literally working on the roof of this like very old, probably very precious archaeological site.
See all these hippies dancing in the middle of the columns and everything. But the scaffolding, I think the scaffolding was part of the set actually, but
well, it looks like they're restoring the wall and they've just taken over. It's very funny. That's why I was laughing so much. They're just like they just threw all of the Sanhedrin on some poor guy's scaffolding. Yeah, but I think this was that was a good visual to try and describe the effect of the priesthood on the people. Because that religious institution acts as a scaffolding of everything. It's the architecture of the civilization there that priesthood is necessary for the architecture to emerge. Going back to our art, and the creators, the sub-creation. But without the scaffolding, you're not going to get the civilization. So it's like they come in and they've got this massive group of hippies following the guru, and then they're looking up at the scaffold. Then from up there you see the institution of the Sanhedrin glaring down, wondering what's going on. And in that way it was very, very well done.
Yeah.
As a nod to exactly what the Sanhedrin was to the people in those times. The structure for everything to stay connected together, which explains, I think, a little more why they were responding to Christ the way they were responding to him.
So this is,
you threatened the scaffolding.
Yes. But the problem for us as Christians trying to describe why we respond to this story of Christ and recognizing that, I mean, it's clearly Weber and Rice are doing it in 73. Sayers did her play in 42. So just actually 30 years before this. That we've talked about how, the coronation of Charles, who's alive at this time, right? He was Prince Charles in this period, is marked with the carrying of a gospel book into the church where he's going to be recognized as king. Talk about scaffolding, right?
Yes. Yes.
But I'd say, okay, one problem. I've talked about, baptized young enough, grew up with this story. It's puzzling to me, and I'll say this, I hope I say it right. I've never had doubts, right? It's like this unfortunately, it's like, okay, I grew up Presbyterian and now I'm Catholic, and what was your conversion like? And I'm like, smooth. It's like, I'm still waiting for the road to Damascus moment where, I get thrown off my horse and God talks to me and says, no, because I haven't been persecuting him, so he's not going to ask me that. At least I hope not. I don't feel like in this one very, very significant story of my life, I've had a big reversal. And I will say that I've spent my whole life, and certainly my whole intellectual adulthood, testing it as a story, testing how people tell themselves to pray within it. Why do they pray? All of these things. But the story itself has always made sense to me, and I therefore, oddly enough, the rooster agrees with me again. Yes. I think sometimes I can't see its edges, so I don't understand what people don't see, because as far as I'm concerned, it fills reality.
Mm. Maybe that's maybe that's I mean, when I was a kid, they were still doing nativity plays for Christmas. And I was actually in one. I got to hold a real baby as the Virgin Mary.
I got to be Mary too. We didn't have a real baby. I'm jealous.
I wasn't allowed to pick it up. They just put it in a box in front of me.
I think I had a doll. I want your baby. But you didn't. Wait, no, you didn't get to pick it up. It's a formative moment getting to be Mary in the nativity play for sure.
Oh yeah. It's so good. I love nativity plays, and they got rid of all of them when just after I got to make my stage debut.
And since she doesn't say, did you get to say the Magnificat? I don't remember getting to say anything.
No, because it was just like a generic secular Protestant Christmas nativity play. But even then, that's radically religious for the culture that exists now in Australia. They actively push to remove them all from public spaces. So nobody does them here anymore. Hardly anybody does them here anymore. But where was I going with this? There was a point. I had a reason for saying this.
I was talking about how I've never had a sort of radical flip.
Oh yeah. If you're in an environment where it's sort of taken as it's a given that the Christmas story was real, you don't have a radical moment of realizing that the nativity play is like this hugely significant thing. It's like the nativity play. Oh yeah, they're doing a nativity play because that's what we do, of course. I'm just wondering whether or not it's a result of your culture becoming less Christian, that you've been able to grow up with a more consistent and sort of uninterrupted conversion, if that makes sense.
Well, so I'll say a lot of people go from nativity play to nothing, right? That they'll say, right, it's like, we actually know of someone who went from Presbyterian to Orthodox Jewish because she said it was too boring in Sunday school, right? It wasn't persuasive. So, that I don't take for granted that I stayed where I did in the story.
Yeah.
Nor, I would say on the one hand, I was listening to this music when I was growing up, and being in the nativity plays and my strongest memory of getting to be in one of these plays was not being the Mary. I do think I got to be Mary once. I don't remember when, but what I do remember was the experience of getting to be at the lectern with the microphone, which was fun, in the dark, reading the Isaiah passage with the throne titles, right? And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, right? That sealed it for me. I wanted to be reading that scripture for the rest of my life. So there's two layers of it, the like enacting the story and then the speaking of the prophecy. But lots of other things, because I grew up Presbyterian, were missing, right? So you could say I've been on a quest for the rest of it ever since, right? The things that I saw when we went to Europe, and I saw the art, going back to that, it's like the cathedrals and the crucifixes, and heard the music, and then it's like, say something's missing. It's like, fine, I've had Jesus Christ Superstar, but there's more, right? I want more of this reality.
It's the ritual that emerges from the devotion, potentially. What do you think?
I think that's part of it, but I think now that I'm talking about it, it's like I've not had a reversal, but I've had just this aching desire to be within it much more fully. Yeah.
You wanted to step into the big.
That it's seen at a distance, right? Like those mountains. You see those mountains at a distance. You want to be in them, and I'm going to drive over that monarch pass again and again and again. Because I want to be in that. Yeah. So the desire to be in the story and the desire to participate in it. again, I'm trying to, it's like the problem getting people to what we're saying, that this scaffolding is there. And I like the way you described that metaphor. It's like the scaffolding needs to be there for people to appreciate the drama, right? Why Annas and Caiaphas are so upset about what Jesus is doing. And they mainly, what the script seems to me mainly to suggest is what I read in my college classes on Jesus and history. There was a big discussion in the 60s, 70s. There was a book called Jesus' Zealot by S.G.F. Brandon. See how well I remember it? Where he's arguing, and this fits with the Judas character being, like, saying, like, we were doing so well, now you've messed up our movement. What have you done? Why won't you listen to me? Because I've got the better advice for you on how to do this movement well. Who do we have next in our picture? Okay, here we have Jesus singing in the hippie moment with the palm tree. I love the Hosanna song. Hosanna, hey, Hosanna, 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 hey, Hosanna, Hosanna. That's almost on tune. Hey, JC,
you did
it. Won't you fight for me? Hosanna, Hosanna, hey, superstar. And then Jesus sings something about you can't stop the rocks from singing, which is good too. So they sung, script composed that well, right? I now forgot what I was doing because I had to concentrate on the notes.
Well, see now you.
S.G.F. Brandon and the Zealots, right? So in the mid 20th century, one of the big arguments is that the concern about Jesus was he was a political revolutionary. But you recognize, as you were saying correctly, that that's coming out of this cultural moment of that's what everyone else wants Jesus to be too, is this cultural revolutionary.
Yeah, because it's just we the world just went through the 60s cultural revolution. Mm-hmm. The boomers were in full swing, and they've gone east. They've gone far east into that kind of, Beatles pilgrimage mode.
Right.
So that, like, they've kind of positioned Christ in this film, in this story, as being the guru that's going to stick it to the man, which is like this scaffolded priesthood, the authorities, and also the way that they depicted the Roman presence as well. I thought was really funny.
Do we have that next? Oh no, we have them at the Last Supper next. So.
Oh, okay. But similar thing. The uniforms are like this very strange mixture of construction worker and like an American army.
See if I can find that. Here they are. They've got Jesus in their. It's in the flagellation scene, I think. Yes, so they're in fatigues, but with purple.
Yeah,
sleeveless.
With these violet tank tops
and silver and guns and silver helmets and such. Yes, it's
yeah. You're
not quite, but I mean, you are quite sure what they're trying to do with that. But it's So, I mean, in the context showing the modern military presence of the Americans.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Because it looked very it looked like America invading the Holy Land, didn't it? I mean, you have that image of Judas standing there in the desert having a meltdown, and then suddenly the tanks start rolling in.
Do I have that one?
It's a very...
I'm going to find that one for you. There you go. Yes. The tanks, the American tanks coming in. I assume they're American. I don't know. Somebody in the chat tell me. So Silent Draco is saying he didn't do nativity play, but portrayed Pilate in the Passion play. Yes, we thought Pilate was very well done in the movie. And indeed, Hosanna followed by Caiaphas. Tell the rabble to be quiet. We anticipate a riot. This common crowd is much too loud. Tell the mob who sing your song that they are fools and they are wrong. They are a curse. I can't go that long. They should disperse. Hosanna, hey, Hosanna, Hosanna, Santa, ho. Santa, hey, Santa, ho, Santa. I can sing along better than I can remember all of it by myself. But
I wish I could sing with you. I just don't know. I don't know the
we have to go back to Hosanna, right? It's like well, now he's being okay. Well, so
yeah, well, it's like it's like they're making fun of American imperialism. There's got like the militarism more than the imperialism.
Yes,
but, they've got the tanks rolling in, and this very shocking difference between these American Romans and the Hebrews on the scaffold. But also, interestingly, the relationship between the both of them, which I found fascinating too.
Between the Romans and the
yes.
priests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very.
This kind of nervous. Negotiation between the two of them, how they how they negotiate everything, and the costume changes when the Sanhedrin are in the presence of the Romans, and how they have to present themselves, and
how did they change? I thought they were in the same costumes.
Wasn't there a scene they had the red? They were suddenly in red.
Oh, that's right. Black. Yes, they're suddenly in red. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. When they're with Pilate, whereas when they're just in black when they're on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting too, because they're changing their dress when they're in the presence of Pontius Pilate.
Well, so this is in one of in one of part of Judas's superstar song, because after that he's dead, right? So he's in wherever he is. He can't be in heaven. He's in, well, we don't know. So the superstar song is sung by Judas after he's dead, and it's his Great Question song, and he's saying, it's like, why did you come here now? Is Israel in 4 BC had no mass communication?
Yes.
Which is the single most telling line of the whole play. Because they're imagining it from, in fact, either London or the American world. It's like this backward land that had, was nothing at the time. And this I just recently realized. It's like, wait a minute, that line has stuck with me my whole life. It's saying, Israel in 4 BC had no mass communication. Why wouldn't you come now when we could make a movie about you, and then everybody would be touched and affected by you, which is, of course, oops, that's Herod. We'll go back to the Romans torturing Jesus, is completely misunderstanding what Jerusalem is and where it is in the world, which is ironic because, of course, in the 1970s and certainly in 1973, it was the center of the world again. Certainly the center of the world's attention, right? And has been very powerfully ever since 1973 or a little bit before that. It's like, it wasn't it wasn't the nowhere world. It was literally the center. And that world in 4 BC had great mass communication. It was called the Roman Empire.
Yeah, they had postal roads.
They had legions keeping their roads, repaired, so that they had mass communication from Egypt to Britain. Actually, Britain's almost conquered at that point. They'll have it soon. It's like this is I've been enjoying showing my class this on the maps, right? If you look at the spread of Christianity, it's like, look, it starts in these cities here and here and here, and then by 200 AD it spread this far, and then it spread this far. It's like it's all spread. Well, and some of it's in Persia, right? They're spreading outside of the empire, but they're mainly spreading within the Roman Empire along its mass communication roads, with its letters and its ships and its grain shipments from Egypt to Rome. It's like prior to the 18th century, it's the most connected that part of human civilization had ever been. during the Roman Empire.
Yeah, they completely unified the Mediterranean region into a massive network. The internet.
Yeah, Silent Draco agrees. Israel in 4 BC was a main node of mass communication. Exactly. Right. So it's interesting that the thing, talking about things that people in our moment don't understand. It's saying, oh, yeah, Palestine, that was backwards. It's like maybe from the British imperial perspective in the 19th century, but not in the Roman Empire, which is, of course, why the Romans are interested in holding on to it and why you might worry about a mass revolt with zealots in the period. And oh yes, it's not a port city, so that does create different differences. But right, that whole coast, right, it's the center of all stories from Mesopotamia through Egypt to Assyria and the Hittites, and we have this thing that used to be called the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago.
What did they change it to?
I can't remember. It's the Oriental Institute. It still says so on the building. And it's still
the Oriental.
It's significant because that region of the world was the great crossroads of everything for millennia. So maybe that's why Jesus showed up there. It's like God does pick his moment. And he does have a sense of, there's also the flip side. It's like, why does that place become so important? Well, because God becomes incarnate there, right? So it goes both ways, but it does actually make sense of it as a crossroads of all of these cultures, like we've been talking about, as saying Jesus is sort of hippie-like.
Yes.
And Indian. They had Indian, philosophers in Egypt in the period too. They called them gymnosophists or yogis.
The yogics were there.
The yogics were there. They've been there. It's like Israel in 4 BC was the main node of mass communication, and all of these traditions are coming in. This is what's funny about saying, Christianity, it's this obscure and like Hebrew religion. It's like it comes out of the intersection between the Greek, the Roman, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, the Silk Road node, right, coming from China. It's like all traditions, which is the medieval maps show it, all traditions converging on Jerusalem.
Yes.
It's like the why of in the moment in history is actually easier to answer than some of the other things.
Yeah, well this is the
on screen we have them drinking, so I'm filling my cup up again.
Oh, fantastic. No, but this is the thing, is it's like the Mappa Mundi, right? It's the Jerusalem is at the center, but of course this makes sense because it's been expressed in the this
your boy is great. We went and he's gonna have to call Peter out soon. I don't know if we had any pictures of Peter. We did learn. We did a little investigation, Wikipedia style, on the afterlife of the cast.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate decline in moral standards after they made this film.
Particularly for Peter, he should have listened to that rooster. He made a lot of movies after that.
Made
apparently without his clothes on.
A lot of films.
Peter, what do you know what you have done? As
he misunderstood
Mary says.
Yeah. He misunderstood what roosters are supposed to be doing.
Look it up. It's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, the Jerusalem as a crossroads. This is reflected in the storytelling in the Gospels and in the Book of Acts with the Pentecost. This is the significance of Pentecost, whereas it's been kind of presented to everybody as this miracle story of, suddenly they were speaking all of these different languages and how miraculous that was because they couldn't speak all of these different languages. Well, yes, it was a miraculous gift of the Holy Spirit, but why would they need to speak all of these different languages? Because Jerusalem is literally the center of everything. And
all these people were there from all of the different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Israelites that were living in every corner of the civilized world were coming back to Jerusalem for the feast. Of course. Oh, that means it was an important place. It also justifies the the idea of this empire was responsible for the cosmopolitanism
Right.
of Jerusalem. I mean, where they had the Roman mass communication, the Roman roads, the network of Rome itself created a cosmopolitanism of Judea that allowed the church to flourish. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that they're suggesting that it's a backwater. But again, why would you be doing that in the early 70s? What are you trying to suggest? why perpetuate the myth that Jerusalem is backwards and whatever? Whether that ties into a general trend in America to want to depict it as
Well, the thing is,
savage,
I think what happened was
uncivilized.
under the Ottomans, that region becomes not the same kind of place, at least for Christendom.
Oh yeah.
So from 1453, when the Ottomans taken control of Constantinople, and then the Ottoman Empire is the great rival to, oh, guess what, the control of the Mediterranean by tomorrow's Saturday is the feast, the Battle of Lepanto Memorial, right? And is it the Feast of the Rosary? I don't know. All these modern feasts that I get confused. But from 1570, when the Holy League pushes back the Ottoman fleet, but recognize that was over control of the Mediterranean, which of course has never been under the control of a single entity since the fall of the Roman Empire. That after the fall of the Roman Empire, eventually the eastern part has one region, the Muslim princes control another part of the Mediterranean, and Italy and the Venetians and the Genoese try to control the northern part, and blah blah blah. It's never been under the control of one power since the Roman Empire. And so it feels like it's not going to be a center, but it actually was. And so when the Battle of Trafalgar, Nelson defeats Napoleon for control of Egypt, then Britain comes in, and it's like the next crusade kind of problem. From the Northern Europe's perspective, the Holy Land's a long way away, and it feels remote. But in the Middle Ages, they thought of it as the center, right? We are the remote bit, and Jerusalem's the center. It's interesting that it's flipped in modern conception, so that we can't see how central the Holy Land was. Yeah, Silent Draco is helping us here. Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria, Rome, Byzantium, all 1 to 3 nodes or sea roots apart. Right, they're very close together. Right, so it's this great network, and it is interesting that modernity can't see that.
No, I can't see it. I think probably because the languages are different. There isn't the unified Roman Empire with the Latins, Latin and Greek, I should say. But these.
Yeah, it was Greek, and it was Greek in the region where Jesus was. The great trading philosophical. I mean, that's why the Gospels are in Greek, right? They're writing for this cosmopolitan audience.
Yeah, they're writing for a cosmopolitan audience inside an empire that has an imperial language for everybody to use. The lingua franca, the equivalent of what English has become for the global empires. But it's very difficult for everybody to think about how linked they were now, because the Mediterranean is a kind of it's this patchwork of different nations and languages. But that was not it was not a factor in the ancient times. They didn't have national borders that had been created out of 19th century nationalism. So you had regions, sure, you had local dialects, sure, but the people living under that Roman imperial system. They were all communicating in the imperial languages, and so yeah, much more interconnected. It's sort of like you've got, I suppose, somewhere like New York, this metropolis environment that's incredibly cosmopolitan, but of course people are going to be using English in New York, trying to explain the Mediterranean is like trying to say, okay, the Mediterranean once was what New York City is now. You're not going to think of explaining New York City in terms of the islands. Like it has, you know, Manhattan Island and then Staten Island and all these, like I don't know New York geography very well, but you have a city that's constructed on different islands. Imagine if that was split and all the islands became different nations during a kind of nationalistic emergence. And then someone suddenly tried to explain, once upon a time, this was all one thing. It was all one thing, and it was all interconnected, and everyone could go everywhere. You didn't need passports between these different islands. It was just New York City. That was the Roman Empire. So yeah, that's where they're at. That's where the gospel writers are at. That's where Christ emerges. It's like the ancient equivalent of New York City. With this
well, and it's also why it's like I'm saying Deo Gratias and Augustine are in North Africa, right? Yes. Deo Gratias is in Carthage and Augustine's in Hippo, which the Romans have conquered from the Carthaginians, and you know, sowed the place with salt, but then built a city on top of it, which has all the features of a Roman city. It's got a forum, it's got baths, it's got theater. So yes. You know it's interesting as we're looking at the fall of the American Empire now, recognizing when the Roman Empire fell, it really did fall, right? The all of the supply routes and everything were disrupted. There's some interesting archaeological study of the way in which like roof tiles vanish. They lose the capacity to make basic building materials in Italy. The population drops, you know, all of these trade routes are disrupted. They carry on with the stories and the language, and so you can have this illusion that the culture continues, which it does in certain respects in terms of education, but it's disrupted massively. So they can still think of themselves as, you know, single Christendom until Islam comes along or something like that, but it's not the same as it was at the peak of Augustus's empire, or the, you know, when Jesus was crucified under Tiberius. So yeah, all of this. So maybe the problem with God is bad at, you know, event planning. That one goes out the window. All right. So, but we still, I think there's other stuff we haven't solved. Here we have Judas and Mary on either side of Jesus, which is also very nicely done in the movie. They seem to be they function. Judas in the play, and apparently some people were upset with it and found it blasphemous that it's all from Judas's perspective because he portrayed. It's like, but Judas is actually, I think, very well done as the one who is wanting Jesus to be more practical and modern. Right, and it is interesting that they cast him as a black, which you responded to as saying that this fits with the civil rights movement and the problem. The black Americans being frustrated with, like, why isn't this working? Right, why aren't you doing this better? Because of the kind of political engagement that they'd had.
Yeah. Well, it just reminded me of the Garveyites. And I was watching it thinking, oh, this is interesting, because when was this film made?
1973.
Oh, not long after. Yeah, 1973. I mean, this is right on the cusp of the, I mean, it's in that time period of like the massive anti-colonialism movements in Africa and everything. And then I was thinking, oh, that's almost like 1 year before the Ethiopian Marxist Revolution. I was thinking, Black Judas, that fits.
He's actually well cast in a lot of it.
Very well cast, yeah, exactly. Because, you know, let's be practical, let's be scientific, let's get rid of all of these unnecessary things that are not going to make us I don't know what it is. I mean, it's to achieve a political dominance, I suppose, and then have so much pragmatism that that the beauty goes out the window. I mean, that's kind of what I was seeing. There was like this struggle of Judas having these arguments. How can you spend time with this woman? You know, the way he speaks to Christ about his scandalous behavior, with allowing Mary Magdalene to be constantly fawning over him and losing it every 5 seconds.
Is your reaction? Judas is spurging out again. He's like, why?
He was just and the thing is, like this constant tantrum.
Yes, the play is Judas centered in that sense, because he's voicing all of the frustration that modern audiences tend to have. It's like, why won't you behave practically? In giving, like, he wants to be like the event manager too, for him saying,
yes,
don't spend your money on that. Let's spend the money on taking care of the poor. I mean, he's not really an SJW in that sense, but he is the social reformer that wants like practical results now.
He's looking at politics as a all right, now you just activated a thought. This is interesting. So that is really interesting. Okay, so he's reminded me of the Garveyites for a reason, because this was the Black Civil Rights Movement without understanding that the identity of Black peoples had to be scaffolded by priesthood. See, even Marcus Garvey, to get on a side quest, but I'll come back, this is important. Marcus Garvey, from my knowledge, was a Trinitarian. He was openly professed the Trinitarian doctrine, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, which is very, very important, because in his own philosophy, understood Christianity to belong to the Black peoples, which is going to trigger a lot of people, but whatever, I don't care. I think it's accurate, probably because they had an understanding of this ancient Mediterranean connection between Rome, Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria, Carthage. Like if you're seeing the world, the ancient world, in an integrated way, this makes sense. From a modernist perspective, it makes no sense whatsoever. But they were pushing Black nationalism, which was devoid of the scaffolding of the priesthood. So yeah, this is what you kind of activate this thought in my head, where it's like Judas is concerned with the management of material reality in the politics of the mission of Christ. Right. And this very frustrated spurging. He's constantly spurging because he sees the scandalous behavior of the followers of Christ as being inappropriate to the mission of managing material reality to fix the world. Right.
Which they wanted to do. As Silent Draco has given us a super chat to make sure I read this. Judas is the modern everyman, projecting SJW on faith, coming up way short. Yes, and it's like Judas, Silent Draco, just do the man things, don't try to be God. Judas. Jesus is no. but I think that's the Judas, I mean, when he ends up calling him Jesus Christ Superstar, yes, it is really Aryan, because it's saying, why won't you, if you're God, which Jesus doesn't believe. I mean, I think it's in the I'll say it's a play, right? In the play, he recognizes that he's betrayed him, but it's not clear to me in the script that he recognizes what he's betrayed. He's like Jesus is going to be killed, and he's upset about that. But in the Superstar song, he's still saying, why aren't you, who are you? Okay, and then now Mary.
Oh,
and this is nicely paired. It's like he's saying, why won't you be this political leader as and social reformer in the way that we need you to be? And then she.
Well, it's interesting because, like, going back to the scaffolding and how priesthood is the scaffolding of a people, because it's like the devotion to the object of devotion creates ritual, which creates art.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Mary Magdalene was doing it the whole time, and all Judas was doing was like, why are you letting this hoe touch you, pour all this expensive wine, oil, well, not wine, all of this expensive oil all over you? We could use the money for the poor, you know. You'll sing the song. I don't know the song, but it was great. He's like, you know, if you know the story of Mary Magdalene, it just cracks
we
open
could have raised 300
like,
silver pieces or more.
Yeah, it's a year's wages to buy this bottle of really expensive oil that she just just decides to randomly crack over the Lord's body, and then starts anointing his feet with her hair. And it's scandalous and very embarrassing, because of course she's like this horrible bad girl that no one wants to have around. And yet Christ said, let her go for it. She's doing it for my burial.
Right.
But Judas having his tantrum over this behavior is interesting, because it shows the distinction between the mentality of people who want to build the nation through a materialistic management, pure politics, and then you have Magdalene, who is understanding the devotional aspect of Christ's being with us in the first place. And she's in pure devotion. There's no interest in whatever else is going on. And it seems counterintuitive, because, you know, of course, what's she doing? She's wasting money. she's wasting things that could be reallocated and redistributed and whatever, you know. But
she's not completely simple, right? Because she has, the fame, I don't know how to love him, right? And that he's a man.
Oh, yeah.
And that wonderful, it's like, and I've had so many men before in very many ways. He's just one more. I can't sing her song because I don't have her voice at all. But, you know, they do play off of a tension that is, well, does she want him sexually? I don't think so. I don't think they're actually saying that. But she's not sure what that means, right? If I can't have him sexually, who is he? I don't know.
Yes.
Which I do think raises a nice tension of like, well, yes, it makes sense that she would want to be with him. And he's, you know, at least in the either the tradition or the not Dan Brown version of things, he didn't, you know, he wasn't married.
No, he wasn't. See, I think that song is going into kind of a Dan Brown, intimating a Dan Brown situation.
It wants to, yeah.
It wants to, and that would be, I think. I mean, this is me riffing, but I'm thinking this is maybe because of the expression of Christianity in the culture where the film was made, that the like kind of Eastern devotional expressions, like this hippie Jesus that they've created that looks like the guru coming in. Well, what were the gurus doing? You know, so it's like if you've got a woman doing these very embarrassing devotions to an object of devotion, maybe for that time period in their minds, well, of course, it's implied that there is going to be some desire for a sexual
it's what the early Christians were accused of, so I don't think it's just it's just not.
Well, no, well, I'm wondering if this isn't why it was like so blown up in the film, though, you know.
Well, I mean, so what I do like about the film, and I like about our discussion of it, is like showing how this is. I think Christians now, curiously, can end up feeling like the story's boring, Right, this was one of Dorothy Sayers' great insights. Like, if you want actually to people to understand Christianity, you need the doctrine, because that's the exciting bit. And we're still not there yet. It could be part 2 or to be continued, right? That it's like, and I've been working on this, thinking about it for the last, well, I'm teaching this class on how to read the gospel, so I'm thinking about it, but I'm also thinking about it saying, I've always been Christian. I grew up Christian. I've been on this quest to find the depths of the story. But then you can also end up feeling like, well, but all the other religions, they get the cool stories, right? And it's like, what do you mean by that, right? It's like, well, you get the cool stories of monster fighting. No, wait. Right? It is other stories about what would be actually more exciting. And now I'm sort of blanking on what I would expect, because we're thinking about the gospel story. But the more, this is what I think medieval Christians started to understand with all their meditations on the life of Christ, and you meditate on all of the different relationships that all these different characters have with him and his story. This is a story that for 2,000 years has borne this kind of deep examination of each of their relationships with him. And, you could say, does any other story carry this level of attention? Then you can test it, right? Aeneas. No, wait. That there's something that comes out of all of these relationships that continually presses you to go in deeper to the mystery. And then you think, okay, it's just the shape of the story somehow there's mockings of it in the 19th century, saying, well, everyone says Jesus was everything, that we can learn how to be human from studying his life. And there's a famous to me, meditation on Jesus, our Christ, our great exemplar, by this very depressed man called J.P. Thompson, who kills himself eventually, I think, or dies of depression. He's very gloomy, saying, Jesus didn't do anything that would give him a true life, right? He didn't get married. He didn't have a job. Well, he doesn't have a job in the Gospels. He maybe trained as a carpenter, and so we know that. But he seems to have, been a vagabond and was killed by the authorities. He has actually nothing to recommend him as not even role model, right? He's not a father. He's not, but just that he doesn't seem, in fact, to do anything that is the regular challenges of human life. At least not to J.P. Thompson in the 19th century, trying to imagine him as a bourgeois Londoner. So there's sort of two sides of that. One is like, what do we expect of this story? And it should be able to unpack for us the mysteries of reality. It better. And two, how do we expect to relate to him? Which is what Judas and Mary are trying to test in the dramatic portrayal.
Yeah, what's the...
do you understand what I mean? It's like, how is this the story that contains all that we need to be studying? I mean, it's going to eventually focus down, which the play doesn't really, on the cross, right? You can say the cross is everything that we need to be understanding. What does that mean, right? We're nowhere near that, and we're going to run out of time, so we may have to do part 2, which is fine. We can talk about Jesus a lot, but the the unpacking of his relationships is one thing that Christians have meditated on for a long time. And then the saints come along and you have all those other relationships. But these are the ones that really, really matter, the ones that knew him in his life here. Monster Hunter Christos, to borrow a title. Yes. Casting out demons, converting a centurion, taking all the world's sin on his shoulders. Silent Draco, you're going to get yourself invited on the stream to talk to us. So
yes.
But I think just sitting here with Judas and Mary on either side of him and feeling this tension between, as we're describing it now, the world and the worldly power. You'll get the power and the glory forever and ever and ever. And Jesus, again, they scripted this nicely, because Jesus keeps saying, you don't understand what power is. You don't understand what glory is. And then Mary being caught up in, what does it mean to love him? I don't know how. Who is he? Why is he so different? This they really pulled off. This questioning.
They did.
Nailed.
Well, it makes sense that she's having that crisis too, because he isn't just man. He is incarnate God. So of course that's going to cause some kind of difficulty, because you can't respond to the God-man in the same way that you're responding to the rest of the human race. It's just not going to happen. So if she's saying there's been many men, well, yes, but there's never been God-man. So it's like, what does that mean? That's a very good.
Which is where we started and where we're going to still be stuck when we stop tonight, right? Because it's like these people encounter him as a human being in, their life, and it is clear from the Gospels, among any other things. It's like people had a lot of different reactions to Jesus. I mean, you can say that with the fact of the four Gospels. So this is one of the things that I've been talking about with my class after we talked through Jesus Christ Superstar and the other 19th century efforts to find the historical Jesus, and saying the Gospels fail or succeed as historical sources. Constantly feeling like, I guess the reverse of my quest is in my own life, that the closer you look, the more he's not there. Right? It's like, why can't I solve this mystery that should be solved by the Gospels? And yet, and then you have Paul saying, I know Christ, but there's no story of his life. He just says, I know it. And then the four Gospels that we have, and there are obviously other Gospels, but none of the other Gospels tell this life, right? They're not biographical in the same way. They're typically sayings collections. So they're more of his teachings, but they're not actually this problem of the passion. The four that we have, that we count as the Gospels, are the ones that tell the passion. And they're each slightly different in the way that they react to him. And yet they're also all writing to say, this was somebody different.
Well, it makes sense that he didn't have a typical human life. Because why would the incarnate, I mean, this is probably the first good question to ask, is why would the incarnate God have a typical life?
Indeed, I never put it that way, but yes, that makes sense, right? But so these are now we've got these two poles. It's nice that we have, so Judas, it's a Magdalene, Silent Draco saying Magdalene is reaching for the truth, Judas is rejecting it. Yes, but we have this tension here, and I'd say on the one hand, we want Jesus's life to have been more exciting. That we want him to be monster slayer as that, but it's like, think of what a cooler story would have been, because that's what Judas is wanting, right? He's wanting the cooler story. You'll get the power and the glory. And Magdalene, it's like she's not wanting it because she's actually better attuned in the but she's still tormented by, it's like, why isn't this just a love story, right? So we could have Alexander the Great conquering the world option, which is why they all speak Greek in that region. Yes. Alexander came along and conquered that part of the world, including Persia, including Egypt, right? Got all the way to India, right? So that's why they can all be like, gymnosophists in, what's that city in Alexandria called? Oh, wait, in Egypt called Alexandria, right? There's multiple So he did it before the Romans did, right? He planted Alexandrias everywhere. And so they all speak Greek. And they have a cultural connection from India to Rome because of Alexander. He didn't conquer Rome, but they pick up all the Greek stuff. So and then all the way to Spain.
They imported everything.
It's like, so from China is not quite in the map right at this point, but certainly from India to the Straits of Gibraltar, thanks to Alexander, you have the world. Why isn't Jesus' story that? Right? So that's what Judas is wanting, right? And then Mary is saying, you know, like, why is it, I don't know, can be Genghis Khan conquer the world and have all the children in the world? Like all of Asia is related to Genghis Khan because of how many children and, you know, wives and children he had, allegedly. It's Charlemagne. Everybody's related to Charlemagne too, because, you know, it's long enough ago. Everybody's intermixed enough that we're all related to these guys. Nobody's related to Jesus because he didn't have any children.
Yeah. So, no, I would say it again. The first clue that Christ is God incarnate is the fact that without either of these options being used to increase his influence, he still managed to conquer the Roman Empire. He did not do as Alexander the Great did, to build a material empire the way that the Judas character in this film wanted, and he did not propagate himself like a Mongolian. You know, there was no physical dynasty that he set up in order to increase his kingdom. That's counterintuitive to somebody who's claiming to be a king.
Right. So this is,
it's completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, never mind the crucifixion, right? So both of them here, and this is, I'd say, I mean, there is a fairly powerful musical interlude over the crucifixion in the play. But it's the Jesus Christ Superstar song is you were watching it and you're like, we go from the was it the flagellation, and then Judas is killed, and then we have the Jesus Christ Superstar, and like you were saying they left out the crucifixion. I'm like, no, it's coming.
Yeah.
But the centerpiece of the play is the Superstar song with all of the, you know, the jazz dancers and lights, and I think I have a picture at the end. We'll jump to that because we're not there yet. We got we haven't had Herod yet. We'll have to talk about him next time.
Oh yeah.
And Jesus, and we'll have to talk about Gethsemane. And here's Pilate. We're foreshadowing for you. Here, you know, there Judas is, and his what kind of outfit is this with the fringes and everything? It's jazz.
It's like a biker jacket almost. It's like a weird cross between a Harley Davidson enthusiast.
I think they're supposed to be wings.
A cowboy gymnast.
Right? They're like angels, right? There's all these angels. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Right. And so we want the power and the glory in this performance, and yet what we get instead is this completely pathetic little crucifixion.
Yeah, well, they want to rave, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want the rave. So there's this kind of build-up in a couple of scenes. I think they're in an amphitheater, or there's a dilapidated temple, and they're all doing a massive dance routine around him. Yeah, they're all raving. They all want to rave. Yeah. Yeah,
the one in the temple is fun. It's filmed fun because they do, like, they're doing tumbling and stuff, right? And they sort of the theme of the production is all revelation, which I found very interesting, right? It's like showing, which is the problem, right? Showing Christ to the world, showing God's entering into the world. How does that happen? And in that temple scene, or I think it's a temple, it's a Herodium, I think, is a palace maybe. And of course the archaeologists have put all the pillars back up. They would have all fallen over. My guess is, they didn't put. I don't think they put them back up for this production. I think it's like there, but it's still a ruin, right? And the dancers come in, and they're all tumbling in, and they're dancing and raving, and it's this great 1970s jazz dance stuff.
Yeah. It's a kind of ecstatic ritual. That's what they're wanting. They're expecting.
Right.
They want an ecstatic ritual, which fits the cults of the era, really. I mean, like all ancient cults were kind of attempts at getting this, isn't it? The rave religion, that's ancient religion, or ancient cults.
Oh, let's see. They did psychotropic drugs. They had lots of sex. There was music. There's light shows, and I was thinking about this. We're paying attention to things for Draco Chemicus, and one of the things that everyone's talking about right now is that big dome in Las Vegas where U2 just performed.
Oh yeah.
And it's I watched some little videos from inside it, apparently, right? And it's taken the big screen projection stuff of psychedelic imagery and stuff and just made a dome of it. And you know, my primary response is horror. Because you're completely in this techno faux reality. But they have actually,
it's like having VR goggles you can't take off.
But you know, or it's like the most terrifying planetarium show you've ever been in. But they have, if what they're going for is, you know, not Christian worship, pagan temple experience. Although, I mean, it's actually also, this is a kind of twisty problem, right? It's the temple is meant to be a model of the universe, creation, right? It's like the temple structure, which the priest on their scaffold. I'll go back to the priest on their scaffold. Are they there? There they are. They're on the scaffold, right? Well, we'll talk about Herod later. Insofar as the scaffolding is there, what the temple was meant to be was a representation of creation, and this is, I mean, it's the allegorical reading of the temple that comes out of Philo, but I think it actually fits here. It's like you have the earth in the enclosure and the outside court, and you go further and further in until you get in the Holy of Holies, which is heaven, right? So heaven and earth are represented in the temple, which means, therefore, if you're participating in the ancient structure that the priests are, that scaffolding, you are worshiping within a representation of the cosmos, which, therefore, the YouTube dome thing, the U2 dome thing, U2, not YouTube, the U2 dome is very like a temple structure, because as far as I could see from what they projected onto it was, you know, the sky and the alphabet and birds and swirly, patterny things, right? It's a massive trip.
Yes.
That worship tends to that. And here Jesus is coming in and really disrupting it, or is he fulfilling it?
That is a great question.
Silent Draco says, good one, Kilts. It's all ecstasy, emotions, but no thought. Formless and chaos. And they forgot Fiat Lux.
And well, then you have the opposite problem too. You can have the opposite problem with the scholastic problem, where everyone's just involved in dialectical arguments and hyperlogical thinking, and there's no art. There's no devotion producing a ritual and art. Then you have which is very bad for the psyche, very, very bad for the psyche, and that creates a culture that we've all been born into now, which is the Christianity without beauty.
Right.
Well, so, you know, okay, I'm modernity super churches where you're going into this, like, it looks like an office space and there's a smoke machine and lasers. It's like that comes out of rationalizing everything too much. You get away from, I think, something like an appropriate holy ecstasy, isn't it?
I figured out a way to stop tonight
Okay.
with this thought. Okay, so we're talking about art and how important it is in the worship and devotion, and also the incarnation, and the temple and the structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's right now. Sorry, I'm getting coughed. All around campus right now, because there are a number of Jewish groups. Like there's a Chabad house and there's a Hillel house, and then also interestingly on campus, which I don't remember seeing before, they've all put up booths because it's the Feast of Tabernacles right now.
Oh, Sukkot. Yeah.
Okay, so they're all booths.
Yeah.
Right, and I pointed out to some of my students, well, this is interesting. The ones we're doing our prayer group for being control group, the COVID control group, right? And we're praying, and I said, "Do you see that this booth, right?" And they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, it's for the feast, and it's like it's representing the tabernacle that they had in the wilderness." And I said, "We need to do a booth for the nativity," and it's like it's one of those things where I think finally these things came together for me. Nativity scenes are booths with the baby in there.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Do you like that?
Mm-hmm.
And
I love it.
And the problem is with the booths, the tabernacle with no Christ in it, no God, is where we are for the most part in modernity, right? So we have no baby in the booth. We have no incarnate. And then I sort of like gently, come on, can you get it there? It's like why art matters so much, right? You have to have the image, because it's interesting what happens without the incarnation, and it's just the scaffolding and no focus. And it's not just focus. I think it was like it's been hovering around in the back of my understanding for the past few days, because the booths went up early this week, beginning of this week. That our minds will go for everything else, I guess. I'm bumbling this. There's both the necessity of the incarnation so that we don't go astray, and there's the necessity of art so that we have something in the booth. And at the Transfiguration, that's what Jesus, Peter and John and James went to build booths for Jesus and Moses and Elijah, right? They went to have that. And I was thinking, it's like the booths without Jesus in them really bother me, and I need to think about why, right? It's like, what happens when you don't have the nativity scene?
Well, the booths become tents in the desert, and it's Burning Man. If you don't have the Virgin and Child in the booth, then you have a form of religion which can be expressed that's inappropriate to express before a virgin and her baby.
Oh, that's an element too. Burning Man, they do actually have a like wicker thing that they burn, right? So there is a figure there.
Yes.
Which is problem, because we worry about this in Christianity. It's like, oh, you can't have idols because then it's misdirected worship. And it's always that problem. You can't have idols, misdirected worship, so we can't have art, so we'll destroy it. And then, it was this flash of suddenly why iconoclasm is the worst thing that we can possibly do, because it destroys the incarnation. It destroys our understanding of the incarnation. We need art. We need, when Dorothy Sayers wrote her play, she pointed out that in Germany they'd had the I can't say that word, the town where they had the Passion Play, and they've been doing it for centuries. And the English hadn't been doing a play, right? They did first the radio play, which was just voices, only audio. And before Jesus Christ Superstar and before they did the rock opera, there had been some television shows of Jesus. And there's all of the Hollywood plays of the greatest story ever told, the Robe and the Ben-Hur. And it's like, so they've been portraying Jesus on film for a while before Jesus Christ Superstar came out. But this it's necessary to have him appear and be portrayed so that other bad things don't happen. And I'm still like grasping at what it is that happened. I mean, I know what happens when you don't have Christ, the world goes nuts, but being able to break it down and show people why that really matters, so that we say, yes, you need the booth with the baby in it. To be continued. we have Transfiguration, was, is, and always shall be. Yes. Nativity is the booth for the second covenant. Nice. Yes, I like that. And thank you, Silent Draco. Professor Brown is encouraging us to think deep. Lots of wonders to find. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We really are just going to stop in the middle here and say, we've got to the point of seeing, I know now what the cover for this episode is. It's Judas and Mary sitting on either side of Jesus saying, who are you? Right? And that we are caught in that tension, and we need to keep wrestling with it, because it matters that we see the incarnation.
Yeah, it's the tension of people responding to an artist. That's my final thought for the meditation today. Thanks be to God.
I have actually understood why the Lord's Prayer is the most perfect prayer, but we'll talk about that next time. Okay. Well, thank you all thank you, Silent Draco, and everyone else who's been listening, and to be continued. Good night.